Hey everybody, Father Joshua here. Welcome to Radio Free St. Rita. It is Friday, April 24th, Friday in the second week of Easter. I was thinking this morning about C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters. If you've not read it, I consider it one of the best books ever written. Certainly one of the finest spiritual books written in 2,000 years of Christian history. I mean, that's quite an endorsement. Let's just say I like it very much. One of my favorite letters out of the Screwtape Letters is letter 11, and it's about humor, jokes and humor, and being funny. And in that letter, Screwtape, the senior demon riding to Wormwood, the trainee demon, talking to him about how to tempt the person he's assigned to, how to use humor in that. He divides humor up into four types: joy, fun, the joke proper, and then something he calls flippancy. He talks about joy and fun as basically unusable by demons, because that's what they do in heaven. They experience joy. Fun can be used as a distraction from things that God wants Christians to do, but fun can also lead to joy, and so joy and fun, Screwtape the demon puts over here as not very helpful for the demonic. The joke proper is another instrument that must be used carefully by the tempter, depending on the person's character and context. But at the end, the type of humor this experienced demon really recommends is what he calls flippancy, right? If you can make your patient, as he calls him, the person you're trying to tempt, if you can make him or her flippant, then you've done your work, right? At the very end of the letter, Screwtape writes this about flippancy. But flippancy is the best of all. In the first place, it is very economical. Only a clever human can make a real joke about virtue, or indeed about anything else. Any of them can be trained to talk as if virtue were funny. Among flippant people, the joke is always assumed to have been made. No one actually makes it, but every serious subject is discussed in a manner which implies that they have already found a ridiculous side to it. If prolonged, the habit of flippancy builds up around a man the finest armor plating against the enemy that is God from this demon's perspective. That I know, and it is quite free from the dangers inherent in other sources of laughter. It is 1,000 miles away from joy. It deadens instead of sharpening the intellect, and it excites no affection between those who practice it. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape. Flippancy is that type of humor, he said, that discusses every serious subject as if the ridiculous side has already been discovered, right? Or as if a serious subject will always have a ridiculous side to it, right? That's being flippant. And he said, this is what's 1,000 miles away from joy. This is what deadens the intellect, and this is what removes affection between people, right? When people talk about subjects which ought to be serious, but they speak about these subjects flippantly. That is, when they speak in a tone or with a perspective that assumes some sort of ridiculousness to the subject. Well, then they're being flippant, right? And then charity decreases, right? And then the intellect is dulled. flippancy in C.S. Lewis's assessment of joy and laughter and humor is what is really demonic and really dangerous. And I don't know about you, but C.S. Lewis's concept of flippancy haunts me, right? Because I think if you spend 2 minutes on Twitter, if you watch 5 commercials, if you watch a sitcom, what you will be filled to the brim with is the humor that is flippancy, right? The incapacity to take anything seriously, right? Everything has a meme. Everything can be turned into a joke, right? And that is spiritually dangerous, to be honest, right? Now, if anybody knows me, I like to have a laugh, right? I think if I wasn't a priest, I would try stand-up comedy, right? Wherever you find Christians, you're going to find funny, right? So I'm not saying that we need to be morose and somber and grave every instant, but we do need to be smart about humor. We do need to understand its spiritual danger, right? There's a philosopher a couple years ago by the name of Stephen Marsh, writes columns, and he talked about about how in this world of post-truth, right, comedy can be very, very dangerous, right? And he was taking a look at people like Jon Stewart and these very funny people on the comedy channel, Bill Maher and stuff like that, and they're hilarious. I mean, don't get me wrong, but there is something about that whole genre which is highly problematic, right? We live in a world of fake news and post-truth, to use those terms, and people on the right have their ways for ignoring fact and truth, but people on the left, and this is what Stephen Marsh was saying, people on the left tend to laugh at it all, right? They take some sort of serious subject, maybe a social issue or something, and in the context of The Daily Show, the subject itself is made ridiculous, right? And there's no actual meeting of the minds, right? You come away self-congratulated for whatever position you held, and you've laughed at your opponent instead of listened to them. Right, and that I believe is one of the major problems with our culture, right? Is that we're flippant. We have a very difficult time taking a subject seriously, right? Which means we can't take our good people seriously, and we can't take our villains seriously, because we all assume it's ridiculous. Right? Now, I mean, I bring that up, and I've written about that before, and I've talked about that before, the role of humor, and it all stems really from Letter 11 from C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters, if you ever want to read it. But it's a meditation that I was sort of on today. After Mass, because if you read the opening collect for the Mass today, right? The collect is the first prayer, the first big prayer the priest prays, right? It begins this way: O God, hope and light of the sincere. Hope and light of the sincere. That just struck me down. It made me think of Letter 11 from the Screwtape Letters. if we're looking for hope, if we're looking for light, which is ultimately to look for God, right? If we're looking for a way out of this cacophony or this nonsense of the squabbles of celebrities and the squabbles of left and right, the inability to even have a genuine conversation, much less an argument. If we're looking for a way out of to quote John Prine, the caravan of fools, if we're looking for a way off that caravan of fools, maybe we explore sincerity. Maybe we look at ourselves and ask, am I sincere, or am I flippant, the way C.S. Lewis described flippancy, right? Because if we want hope, if we want light, which comes from God, maybe this collect is correct. O God, hope and light of the sincere. And so let's have a good laugh. I can tell you a joke in a heartbeat. My dear bishop, I think he's getting used to my humor. In this crisis, I asked if instead of holy oil, could he consecrate some Purell so he could carry on with confirmations, and he just looked at me and said, "Enough, Father Whitfield." So I like humor, but we need to be careful. We need to be careful about flippancy, because flippancy takes away charity. It reduces it. It reduces charity, and humor should never ruin love. That's the rule. Humor should never be cruel. Rather it should be that which tends toward the laughter and the joy, which can be the pilgrim's sweetness on the way to heaven. Right. So have a wonderful weekend. Have a good laugh, even in these strange days, and find God, His hope and His light, with sincere hearts. God bless.